Laura Kuenssberg has exposed a timeline stumbling block in the ongoing Brexit talks as time runs out for a deal to be clinched between the UK and the EU. The two sides have failed to reach a breakthrough on the future fishing arrangements between the two sides once the transition period ends on December 31. Talks were thrown into chaos earlier this month when the EU demanded unfettered access to Britain's waters for 10 years. Mr. Barnier asked for a transition period that would see the UK move from having catch quotas of around 18 to 20% of fish in UK waters to 50% in that time frame. The UK had other ideas as it had already offered a 3-year transition period on fishing arrangements and was said to be willing to offer an even longer transition of around 5 years. This would mean the EU would have to hand back at least 50% of its fish quotas from January 1 instead of the 18% it had been offering. Ms. Kuenssberg suggested the EU did not want a transition period to end too fast in cases it did not get what it wanted, despite the UK wanting to be free of the bloc's shackles as soon as possible. The BBC's political editor said, an EU source suggested the Prime Minister wants to be free of any obligations to the EU by the time of the next election, but that the time frame is simply too fast for the EU to agree. And on this side of the channel, there is concern about how much the French president is really willing to move. Might it be easier for him, given an approaching election, to sell no deal, rather than create any impression that he has backed down to the UK? If you visit this page often, then you will be very familiar by now with the panto, "Oh yes, they will. Oh no, they won't" narrative of Brexit. That normally resolves with a happy ending. But don't be so sure this time, in this strangest of years, that it will follow a familiar script. It comes as EU chief negotiator Michel Barnier warned there are just a few hours left to agree deal. Despite fisheries still being an issue in talks, Mr. Barnier has refused to back down over the EU's demands to be able to impose trade barriers should the UK change its regulations to offer substandard goods on the EU's market. With fisheries, Mr. Barnier added the bloc wanted to be free to retaliate by blocking EU market access to UK fish products if it stops European ships accessing its waters. The UK has said that after a transitional period it wants exclusive access to the zone 6 to 12 nautical miles from the British coastline, as well as the repatriation of 60% of the EU's current catch by value in UK seas. But French and Belgian fleets have been against this as they rely on catches from the UK coast, meaning Mr. Barnier has said he cannot agree to this.